Before we start today's episode of the I'm F.I.N.E podcast, we want to make sure to thank our partners at Trio. Don't wait. Be ready and connect with Trio. FAFSA applications are now open. The sooner you apply, the higher chances you have of receiving the full grant. The Trio staff at Governor State University are the perfect people to help. Trio can help with the financial aid process and scholarship searches. Trio can provide fee waivers for admissions applications, assist with the admission application processes, online tutoring, help with GED referrals, and provide payments for the GED test. Trio provides various avenues for career exploration, as well as resume interview preparation. Trio can also help you understand and complete your FAFSA application. If you're ready to take the next step on your educational journey, contact Trio at 708-235-3352 for more information, or visit their website at www.govst.edu/TRIOEOC. On today's episode of the I'm F.I.N.E podcast, we are going to talk about being freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional about starting over. We're going to talk about times in life where we have started over, what transitioning out of the military felt like, and how you can start right back from square one this year in 2024 with our friend, co-owner of Beacon Training Group and Wild Harts Farm, and United States Marine, Craig Zelhart.
Welcome to the I'm F.I.N.E podcast with your freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional hosts, Eric Peterson and Brad Stozick.
Happy 2024.
Happy 2024.
Did you have a good New Year's?
Yeah. Yeah, you?
So I just felt, I think, a little overstimulated as a whole from the entire fucking year, dude. Like it's go for me a lot. And you know that.
Oh, yeah.
So like for New Year's this year, Ashley and I got a sitter to watch the kids. And luckily our sitter's amazing. And she stayed the night. And Ashley and I got a hotel. We brought our Xbox and we just hung out.
Nice.
Like we used to do before kids. We just like spent time with each other. That's how I wanted to spend the new year. I love being around people. I love my friends. I love my family. But like, sometimes I just want to spend some time with my wife. And I knew that the busier that I get, the more that I forget that sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to make a point to do that. And so I really enjoyed being able to do that. You know what I mean?
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, man. What about you?
Yeah, we just went to Kristen's house.
Yeah.
Just hung out.
Yeah.
Had a good time.
I like doing things with like our fat family.
Oh, yeah.
Just because the precedent is set. Like the expectations are just wear whatever you want to wear.
And just show up.
Just show up, hang out. Don't worry about it. Like it's very accepting.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like, for me now, like I got invited to some New Year's parties, New Year's Eve parties, which is really cool. And I always appreciate it. It's always good to feel invited and belong, like you belong to something or a group of friends or whatever. But like, sometimes when it's like a nicer party or whatever, I'm just like, man, I don't want to go through all that shit. Like,
like dressing up and
not always. Sometimes I'm just like, sometimes I'm in the mood. Sometimes I'm like, I just want to fucking chill right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I think that that's a lot of fun. So for the first episode of 2024, we started this podcast in 2022.
2022.
And it is 2024, my friend. Look at us.
Look at us.
Chugging along.
I was just thinking that before we started recording, actually. I was going to say something, but I couldn't figure out the math very well.
I'm not that kind of Asian. What do you mean? What kind of math?
I was like, is this year 3 or year 2 we're going on?
We started in 2022 and it's 2024. Then that means that we've been doing this for like 30 years, I think. 37.
Sounds right. Yeah.
I don't have an abacus.
I mean, if you round up,
If you round up to the nearest 37th,
yeah,
then we've been doing this for 37 years.
Look at us go.
It feels like that sometimes.
It really does.
We've been doing this for a little while, and I always tell you how much I enjoy recording days, and I really hope it comes out that way when we're talking. And again, closing the year last year. We're getting closer and closer to 10,000 total views, downloads. I really hope that our listeners understand how much we appreciate this.
No,
and
absolutely.
Especially when they reach out and tell us how much they got from this or any particular episode. Like, there are a few things that I love as much as that, and it's always really cool to hear that. So to start the new year, I wanted to do an episode about kind of starting over.
Yeah.
Not necessarily your entire life, or it might be, but it's like, I feel like years ago when we were like younger, whenever the new year came around, it was all about starting over, having your New Year's resolution. Everybody had their New Year's resolution, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then a few years ago, like, we saw the backlash where it was like, at least I feel like I saw that, where it was like, people were like, you don't need to have a starting date on that. You should just start today. You don't need to wait for the new year. The gyms are going to be packed because all these people are in here with these New Year's resolutions. And I was like, the pendulum swings both ways, And now I hope that it's kind of settling in the middle, in that we just are a little bit more, like we said earlier, accepting and understanding, like, hey, if January 1 is your starter pistol to do what you got to do to be who you want to be this year, fucking go for it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And if not, then it's not for you, and that's totally fine. But I'll admit, I was in the camp of like being frustrated because there's so many people in the gym now working on their New Year's resolutions. I fell into that mindset a little bit, and I realized, like, hey, good for these people.
Yeah.
If that's what you needed, you need encouragement. You don't need me talking shit. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And so I wanted to have somebody on that knows a thing or two about starting something starting over again a bit, trying something brand new and really running with it. And I couldn't think of anybody better than Craig Zelhart. He's going to be here in a minute. We're going to have him on. Craig's a United States Marine. He is the co-owner of Beacon Training Group and Wild Harts Farm. Wild Harts Farm is out in Grant Park, Illinois. It's an awesome farm. He's going to talk about some of the events that he has coming up. He had a farm camp last year for kids. I sent my oldest daughter out there, Lily, and she had an amazing time. We're trying to do more events together, and Craig and I have had a lot of really good conversations at his farm where he's just talked to me about what that life has meant to him. And so I'm really happy to have him on here. So when we come back, we will be back with being back, and we'll be back. And then we'll be back.
And then we're coming back.
And then we're going to come back with Craig Zelhart. Okay, we are back with Craig Zelhart. Craig, thank you very much for coming in today, dude.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Yeah, we've fucking been trying to do this for like a while.
How about it, man?
We talked, I don't know, like 6 to 8 months ago. Like, I know you are super slammed and your schedule's fucking pretty insane.
Yeah.
With all the pots that you have your hands into.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate the time that just,
hey, pot, it's kettle. Cause I know you guys, you know what I'm saying? Like, you guys are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I don't remember do you remember how you and I met? Cause I feel like you started Wild Harts around the same time I was starting Fat.
Yep. So there we were. We met.
No shit, there we were.
Yep. We met at a Sleep in Heavenly Peace build. It was actually about this time of year.
Oh shit.
Yeah, probably 4 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because I brought my son out there and he helped, slam some beds together. I thought it was pretty cool. And then you and I just bumped into each other and music started playing.
Yeah. And that was, and how new was Wild Harts then? How old is Wild Harts?
That was before we had, that was our first year. I think we'd moved into the farm maybe like 3 months or something.
Oh shit.
Like that. Yeah.
Okay.
So we were just getting going.
Before we even get into that, so the purpose of this episode is 2024. A lot of people come January 1, that's the starter pistol for them to like work on some shit, start changing some things, and that's a good thing. It's good if that's what you need, and that's what you need. But when you and I have talked about doing an episode, You know, you and I have had, like, in my opinion, some really good fucking conversations, especially at the farm, with you just telling me about what that was and what that's meant to you. But to understand that, I think we need a little bit of context. So, like, would you mind getting into a little bit about your time in the Marines?
Yeah. So I joined the Marine Corps right out of high school. I actually started off in the National Guard. Like you, did I tell you that?
Yep.
So started off in the National Guard. My grandfather is like my idol. When I came home from basic training, he starts like the Army Marine Corps ribbing.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, what? I thought my grandpa was in the military. I thought he was in the Army. You know what I mean? No, come to find out he's a Marine. I was colorblind. So that is another thing I have going for me. The Army at the time was only letting, if you were colorblind, you could only have an administrative job or something like that. You couldn't have a combat arms job when I was enlisting. So I didn't like that. And then you add my grandfather kind of starting the whole Marine Corps Army joke thing. Yep. And I'm like, dude. So the Marine Corps recruiter comes my senior year. I kind of tell him the predicament I'm in, and he's like, so he asked me this, he's like, I got 2 questions for you. Like eye contact, right? He's like, I got 2 questions for you. Can you shoot? And I'm like, yes. He's like, do you like to fight? And I was like, yes. He's like, that's all we give a damn about, son.
Welcome to the Marines.
Exactly. Like, come on in. So yeah. So I went to Army basic training between my junior and senior year, and then after I graduated, joined the Marine Corps, went back to their boot camp. Did 4 years active in the Marines, 2 deployments, one to Iraq, and then the second one was to Okinawa, like a Westpac, kind of floated around, saw a bunch of cool places. Got out in 2009, got into the reserves, tried getting back in. They weren't taking active duty guys back at the time, because that was the whole deal. Like, I figured I could get out. The Marine Corps is not going anyplace. If it doesn't work out well for me, I can always jump back in.
Right.
And that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
They weren't taking guys back. So I got in the reserves, did that for 4.5 years, and then transitioned into policing about 2-3 years after I got out of the Marine Corps. Been doing that ever since.
Was that a pretty easy transition? Because you see a lot of guys, because you were infantry in the Marines, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like whenever I talk to anybody about joining the military, I always talk to them about like planning for your fucking future, right? And so it's like, when you think about joining the military, you could do fucking anything. You X-ray tech, they're going to pay for all your shit. You can be an aircraft mechanic, or if you could almost spell your name right, you can join the infantry.
Right.
And I say that because I was also in the infantry.
Right.
And it's just like, when you go through the infantry, like, I wouldn't have done anything any different, because that's why I'm where I'm at, is because of all the decisions I made that led me up to this point, right? But like, it was, when you get out, there weren't a whole lot of options as far as what you can do with that skill set. No. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, you know, when I joined, 9/11 happened when I was a freshman, right? So I was 14 or 15. And I was like, dude, there's 4, it pissed me off, right? Like, I'm sure it did you guys, right? But what kind of added salt to that wound was it was 4 years before I could go do something about it. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted to get into the fight. Yeah. And so I didn't really care about, I mean, there's different times, you know, it's like, I wanted to get in there and I wanted to fight. And so that's where my mindset was. But yeah, like the toll on, like you said, like your body for the first 4 years, or just 4 years. How guys do 20 years in the infantry is beyond shit. Yeah. Like, you're a genetic specimen.
Yep.
To be able to like just stand straight at the end of 20, you know what I mean, of 20 years in the infantry. 4 years it has a toll.
You got to take a 50 cal and load it on top of a fucking AMRAP like multiple times a day,
right? And
all that other bullshit that you got to carry around. God forbid you're humping stuff and going on foot patrols carrying. When I first got in, did you have the M60 in the Marines when you got in?
No,
the first
in the Army I did.
I had an M60. Training. Yeah, at boot camp, and then I got to my unit with the M60, and I told my uncle, who's a Vietnam vet, and he was like, "I had the M60. How the fuck do you have an M60?" Right. And then we got the 240 Bravo, and then the next day they were like, "Oh, hey, by the way, we're going to Afghanistan." I was like, "Oh shit, that makes sense." That makes sense. Yeah. But yeah, it's pretty hard to do. But a lot of guys that I know, they become a police officer because it's one of the things where the discipline and a lot of the other skills that you learn in the military do have a place. Yeah. Would you agree with that? I mean, how
100%. I mean, like, and the brotherhood too, man. Like, it's just being around guys that that are like-minded and still going out and helping people, like, finding the bad guys, bringing them back. I mean, it's still the rush, like the adrenaline. The lights get to go, and you people are running the opposite direction. You're going in towards that fight. Like it's definitely a rush too.
Yeah. Did you have a hard time?
I had a very hard time getting out of the Marines. Yeah. Because I didn't want to get out. Like my wife and I wouldn't change anything. My first deployment, I got hurt. I got blown up a couple times in 4 days. So my wife got 2 phone calls in 4 days, and it was basically like, "Hey, your husband was hurt. That's all we know. We'll let you know. We know more." You know what I'm saying? And like she's 19 at the time. Then finds out, he's okay. And then she gets a phone call again 4 days later, and she's like, "No, I already got this phone call."
Jesus.
Like, no, it's another one. Yeah. So when I left for my second deployment, and like I said, that was just a float, like a Westpac. The day I left, she's like, "Hey, just promise me that this is the last one." I'm like, she's like, "No, promise me." I'm like, she's not going to hold me to it. You know what I mean? Like, we love each other. And because I love the Marine Corps. Yep. I was doing well in it. And she held me to it. And she's like, "Hey, look, if you want to stay in, that's cool. But I want to get out. You do your thing." Man. Yeah. And I'm obviously like, but I'm going to go with her. You know what I mean? Like, so, and I'm happy with that decision. Oh, yeah. Like, but it was hard. It was very hard to get out, because that was 2009 when I got out, man. Yeah. So I joined the Marine Corps very quickly, because I told you, like, I had this burning desire to go. I was scared I was going to miss my chance. Right. So the Marine Corps recruiter calls me on a Thursday, and he's like, "I got good news and bad news." This is 2005. He's like, "The good news is, I got you the last infantry slot in the nation." Some dude in Florida backed out. He had this whole so I'm like, "Dude, I don't care." He could have yeah, exactly. He's like, the only one in the nation for infantry, right? Like, because it's such a sought after position. Yeah. So he's like, "That's the good news. The bad news is you leave Monday." So this is Thursday. So I was working at the grain elevator. It was Lambert Grain at the time. Across from Walmart over there. So I literally like park the tractor, jump off, quit my job, go home, talk to my girlfriend at the time, was my wife, and tell her like, "Hey," she's like, "Oh, I'm so, what's the special occasion?" I'm like, "I'm leaving for the Marines on Monday, Bro. So then, so I go home that night, and kind of like, well, she's probably going to go to college. We're probably going to break up, and I don't want that. So let's get married." You know what I mean? Like,
that never happens.
Dude. Yeah. It's crazy story. You never heard that in the Marine Corps before, right?
Nope.
So that was like Thursday. Friday,
you bought a Dodge Charger.
Yeah, no, I sold my 1989 Eclipse.
Oh shit!
No, not Eclipse. No, what I forgot. I don't remember what it was, but whatever junker I had at the time. Yep. So I go ask your dad. I fully expected him to say no. He's like, he gave me his blessing. So I sold my car, bought a ring. I was like, Saturday we engage, Sunday we like celebrate. I'm leaving Sunday night at MEPS in the morning.
Oh shit!
So, but it worked out for the best, man.
Hell yeah,
yeah.
Well, it takes
5 kids later, and she put her life on hold for 4 years to come out and do something I wanted to do. Like, now it's time to go make a life. Yeah, like find something we want. Didn't make getting out any easier, but that that's how I came to terms with it then. So,
well, like when I got linked up with the State Department, DOD, and started doing deployments as a private military contractor, you would see guys that had no idea how many times they deployed. And this isn't all of them, but the ones that I knew, a lot of the ones that I knew, their wives, they were on their third or fourth or something, or divorce, or they, a lot of them, it takes a special type of person, two special type of people to keep a long-term relationship going when you're constantly deploying and living that lifestyle. Like, that's just hard for fucking anybody. Yep. You know what I mean? My wife gave me the same sort of ultimatum after the 6th one with the DOD. She was like, "You got to fucking come home. I just can't do this anymore." And it was very hard for me to do too. But I mean,
because you're always going to want one more. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think you're ever, like, still, I was like, man, I wish I would have went on that next deployment with those guys. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it would have always been that. So
then when you came home, was like, Were you good? Was everything fine?
So I come home and like I said, it's 2009 and, you remember that tractor I told you I jumped off of? Like, I thought because I have all this experience in the Marine Corps, like transitioning to a police job or a fire job will be easy, man. Like they're going to be like, what you want to work? Yes. Like, come on in. We got a place already set up for, no, it wasn't like that. Like in 2009, when there was a police officer firefighter exam, like there would be hundreds of people.
Oh yeah.
That would try to, and they wouldn't even be hiring. They would just be establishing a list. Right. I couldn't find work anywhere except back at Lambert Green. I was thankful for it, but I picked up the same shovel I put down like 4 years later. You know what I mean? So I was thankful to have that job, but it was kind of like a mind, it didn't help at all because it was like, what were those 4 experiences for? Because I literally did not move forward anywhere in my life. At least that's what I was thinking about then. But it kind of strengthened my resolve. Like, hey man, this is where you're at now. If you want to move forward, you gotta do something about it. You know what I mean? And so those are lessons that you learned in the military. Like that strength you get from the military. And so I did.
Yep. So what happened? So you have combat experience, infantry, police officer. Where the fuck does the farm come into play?
Well, that's another long story, right? So I told you I got hired on as a police officer, and I get back into the same training habits that I did before, kind of like that same mind space of training hard, like being prepared for anything, looking out for your friends before yourself. Like I get put on a SWAT team with a very high op tempo, and I just my focus is on that. And you have to be very focused to do those things, right? Like you need to be very dedicated if you're going to be a good member of that type of team.
Right.
So, we were doing ops 2-3 nights a week, very high, maybe not 3 nights a week, but on average, we're doing at least 1 a week. Right?
Yeah.
A search warrant. So I'm working afternoons. I sleep for a couple hours. We'd go, hit a house a week or something like that. If not, I'm coming home. I get home about 1 o'clock. I'm waking up at 5 a.m., working out, dry firing, meditating, showering, going to driving an hour to go to boxing, jujitsu, coming back home, showering, going to the street. Like that was it. That was my life, constantly, right? Super focused on training, and being a good member of this team because I want to survive. That's what I thought of. That's me being a good husband and father, is like doing the things I need to do so I can survive this career path. And not that it's like it's, I don't want to make it up like we were doing some crazy like Rainbow Six stuff on this stuff, but that's where my mind was. Like, I have to be focused on this task so I can be there for my family. If I'm going to expose myself to dangerous things, I need to be proficient at that so I can be there for my family.
Yep.
So I became very good at those things, and how I thought I was going about doing both as being a family man and a good police officer or a good SWAT operator was, at work. It was very simple for me. At work, people call me by my last name, Zelhart or Z, they'd call me. And around my family, I was Craig. So in my mind, I'm 2 different people, right? At work, I'm this person. And at home, I'm this person. I would get mad at work. I would get mad if someone called me by my first name. Like, dude, we don't share a roof. We don't share a bed.
Right.
Don't call me by that. Like, my last name's Z or Zelhart, that's what you're going to call me. And that worked out. Well, actually, I met somebody along the way, and they're like, "Oh, that's how you do that. Let me know how that works out for you." I was like, "Let's I can remember that conversation, right?"
Yeah.
So I thought it worked out pretty well until it didn't. And one night, those 2 worlds kind of came together. And the issue with that is, I'm not 2 people, right? I'm one person,
right?
I'm Craig Zelhart. I'm not like Craig. There's that Zelhart. They're obviously I'm one person.
You think you can separate it so easily?
You can't. Yeah,
right?
and like that was, and I hear guys say it all the time, and that was something I believe is like you come across something, you see something, or you experience something, you bury it down deep, and never talk of it again. Right? That was my solution, or it makes you harder. Right? It's like you're better for having witnessed it because now you're harder. Right. What you mean is you're numb. You're getting numb to it.
Yes.
And the problem with that is it's again, there's some truth to that because it can benefit you to survive in those types of situations. Yeah. But you're not living. Right?
Like short-term stressors are good. Short-term stressors make you more proficient at the task at hand.
Sure.
But the long-term chronic type stuff, that's what fucking rots you from the inside. Yeah. Slowly, I think.
Right. And burying it down deep, bro, it ain't deep.
No.
It's right below the surface. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And when you try to, when you take a break from those things, if you try to go on vacation or you start getting a lot of sleep or something, in my experiences, once you press pause on the other stuff, that stuff that you haven't dealt with starts creeping to the top.
Yes.
So anyways, yeah. So I had that experience where both these worlds come crashing together. Mm-hmm. Kind of put me in a dark place for a little while, man. Mm-hmm. And so I had these realizations that I've done this for so long, but that's now I was 33 years old at the time. That's all I know how to do now is fight. Mm-hmm. Right. I'm 33 years old. All I know how to do is with these hands is fight. So where's the peace in that? Right. So about that time, we already bought like 5 chickens for my sons, as like a chore for them to do. So we would go outside and I would see my sons like messing around, feeding their chickens or collecting eggs, and then they started selling them, or they'd help me build the coop for all that, and I saw like how rewarding that was. To me, it was just beautiful, like to see my kids outside doing something, and I could see them putting effort into a task and then collecting those eggs, having something to show for that effort, selling it. And then, the first year, I think we sold maybe like, just a few dozen eggs. We didn't have that many birds, but my little guy, Colton, was probably like 6 or something at the time, maybe a little bit older, but he wanted to buy this little plastic bag of like Army soldiers from the Dollar General. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, well, dude, this is an opportunity to teach him about money. So we were selling eggs for $3 a dozen, like out of our little backyard, where we weren't supposed to have any chickens. We were living in like a nice neighborhood then, dude. Like
that's awesome.
We're not supposed to have anything. So he's selling his eggs for $3 a dozen. I told him $1 goes back to the birds, $1 goes into savings. You get $1 to spend. So by the end of the summer, he had enough saved up to buy this bag of Army soldiers. And when he hands his money into the Dollar General and like they give him this bag of soldiers, like I to this day, dude, I can see the look of like that, just how proud he was, man, on his face, and I was hooked, dude, right there. So we started working outside together as a family. And I'm going through this stuff at this time, right? And I noticed like the more work I did outside, the more it wasn't the same thing like boxing or jujitsu, like not that type of physical exertion. It was like, moving, like digging whatever trench over here, or like putting up a fence or building this chicken coop. At the end of the day, I was tired, so I was worn out. It's something I could control, and I had something to show for my work.
Yep.
Like another day I went over to one of my friend's house. It was in the fall. And this dude, his backyard looked like he hadn't raked leaves like from last year. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, like that thing was like 2 feet deep of leaves. I'm like, bro, what are you doing? Yeah. Like, give me a rake, man. Yeah. So I just started raking back there, and I'm going through all these things in my head, and dude, I just kept raking. I just kept going. And my buddy I was like in this trance, right? Yeah. And because I was focused on this task, and it was something I could control. And my buddy just let me be. And by the end, it took me an hour or whatever, but I had this huge pile of leaves. And I was like, man, like this reminds me when I was young doing, like physical labor like this. And I was proud of it. You know what I mean? It was like something I could control. I was tired. I'd exerted myself into something, as simple as that was, I could see what I had something to show for my work. Yeah. And it felt good. So I started working more outside with my family at home, and that small flock of like 5 or 6 birds grew into like this micro farm in our backyard in this subdivision, right? So to put it in a context, this is like we had a nice home. It was like 5 bedrooms, 5 baths, movie theater in the basement, like cush living, right? And I a little too cush for my sons. So they needed some chores. So that's where the chickens came in. So we started focusing on all this work outside and building this little micro farm. So we had, started with chickens. Then we got some rabbits. We started raising quail. Some goats came. Pig came. And then we had like this little, like legit, like micro farm in the middle of this subdivision. We weren't supposed to have anything.
Right.
So one day, I was talking to my wife, like, there's a lot next door. Maybe we could buy that and put a milk cow out there. She's like, what's wrong with you? Like,
but what was she thinking this entire time? Every time you guys were getting more animals, she was about it, right?
Like, because we're doing stuff as a family.
Right.
Like it's family time outside, man.
Yeah, that's cool.
So one day our pig busts out the gate, or no, we had a goat bust out the gate, and the goats are in the neighbor's garage, like on their car.
Oh shit!
And the pig is in the neighbor's garden, like just chowing down. And everything just got out and running all over the neighborhood. And me and my wife are like, once we get everything inside, we're like, man, you know what? If we're gonna do this is what we want. Then maybe we need to look for something else.
Yeah.
And so we bought this farm, sold everything, bought this farm, went from this really nice house with, all the creature comforts to, a 100-year-old farmhouse, and we couldn't be happier, man. Much smaller and just simple. And
why do you think that is? Why do you think you couldn't be happier in the house that you're in, doing all the work that you're doing? It's much more physical labor for your entire family. But like you said, you didn't say you couldn't be happier. You said we couldn't be happier.
We're doing that together, man.
Yeah.
Like we're building, this farm to us is like, it was, we got lucky with, the farm, like the infrastructure was there when we bought it for the most part, like good, strong fence, outbuildings, all that. But what we were going to do with that was a blank slate. We had good pastures, but there were no animals that were there, and we didn't know anything about it. I'm like, mind you, bro, we have no background in raising like any type of livestock.
It's baptism by fire.
Yeah, 100%. It's YouTube and questions and reading books and all that. So yeah, it was a blank slate and just a way for us. Think of it like a canvas, bro. Like we can paint our picture here, and we've tried to keep it. Obviously, we want it to grow, but we want to keep it simple where we don't need a bunch of tractors or different equipment, because we want to keep it I want my children to be able to do everything on the farm.
Yeah.
Right. I want to, if I have a bunch of tractors and we keep growing, then that's time away from my kids. And I've done that. You know what I mean? I want my sons, and I have twin daughters now, but they're only one, but I want my sons by me every step of the way. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we're doing. So it started with five chickens, and now we're going to be having we'll have 4 cows and milk. We'll have 4 dairy cows and milk by June. Our 4th one's coming today.
Nice.
After this, we've probably got I think 6 or 7 beef cattle there now. We have sheep. Probably our laying flock's probably 100. We raise meat chickens. We have goats. We raise quail still. We have a rabbit tree, all sorts of stuff. Pigs.
So one of the things that you brought up with the story and your son and the Army soldiers, and I'm also very sorry that he didn't buy a little packet of Marine soldiers, but the look that he had when he realized that his work gave him something, like because he earned those things. I also feel like that's one of the most crucial parts as far as like why a lot of service members have issues when they get out. I feel like most people in general want to work for the things that they have. They want to earn things because you feel better when you earn something than when you don't, which is why there are like studies out there about businesses that stay in the family and why after like 3 generations, they typically fuck off and then the business just burns down to the ground, because at that point, those people, if they didn't earn that success, then they don't appreciate that success.
Yep.
And it's like one of the biggest things I feel, one of the worst things I think you can give a veteran, in my opinion, and granted, it's not just a blanket statement for every veteran, but a lot of the time, I think one of the worst things you can give a veteran is everything.
Yeah.
Where all they're going to do is sit and not do shit. Like, I like to work for things and earn things. I don't like things to just be given to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. These men and women, they're survivors, man.
Right.
Like, 100%. And what you just said, like, to earn it, right? Or a lot of because we do a lot of tours out at our farm, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and part of those tours are like, hey, it's basically like you walk through doing chores with us, right?
Right.
And we explain what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I hear all the time, like, dang, dude, that's a lot of work. That sounds like a lot of hard work. And I'm like, yeah, it is. Why is that a bad thing?
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because to me, I don't want an easy life, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that sounds dull and boring and common.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not me. What I want the strength to endure a hard one.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, I saw that on a t-shirt,
Mm-hmm.
like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, we were in Disney or some shit. And it was printed on a t-shirt. So I got to give credit where it's due. But it really moved me, dude. And I mean that, man. Like, think about that. Like, just easy is just, it's boring. You know what I mean? Like,
you don't learn
flavor
anything.
Life. Right. 100%.
You don't learn when things are easy. So we have a program now where we're starting to take veterans out to the gym. And I was in the gym this morning with a veteran named Luis. Awesome dude. Great dude. And we were talking about our night. And my daughter Lily, she got her tonsils taken out recently, so she hasn't been sleeping lately. So last night I got like an hour and a half of sleep. So I woke up, I just felt like shit, and I'm still going to the fucking gym. Right. And Luis was like, "How do you do this? Like, I don't know how you do it." And I just said to him, while obviously there are plenty of other things that I can still improve on, and other things that I need to do physically, but like, if you can't go to the gym when you don't feel good,
right,
then you're not about that lifestyle, man.
Right, exactly.
Like, I don't learn who I am when I feel great and go to the gym. I learn who I am when I feel like shit and I still get in there, and then I have a very good workout, or even if I have a shit workout, the confidence I have in myself, or the pride that I have, saying I felt like shit, I had no sleep, I had this, that, whatever, and I still got my ass in here and I got more done before 5 a.m. than most people will the rest of the day.
Right.
Like, you need to do that shit.
Yeah.
You have to struggle a little bit every fucking day. You have to create that struggle, regardless of what your lifestyle is. If it's a cold shower, if it's a run in the morning, like, you have to do something. And I think that without doing that, living in a super lavish, comfortable life, you forget that shit so fast, so fucking fast. Yeah. And I think that's one of the many issues that a lot of guys have when they transition out of the military. So when you look back categorically, initially, a lot of people thought the issue with a lot of veterans was PTSD. And now they're seeing that there's another really big issue, adjustment disorder, that a lot of veterans are having issues when they get out, just coming back to service. And they're finding that a lot of those veterans don't necessarily have combat experience, which I thought was interesting. I thought that was really interesting to me. But why do you think it is that veterans have issues transitioning out of the military?
For me, it was that there was nobody like me in my community, right, in my circle. Now, I've always been blessed with a very strong support system. Yeah. But there was, like the guys I talked to in high school, I didn't really have that much in common with anymore. And there was really nobody I had. Again, that was the recession, man. So like, there was just, I couldn't find work. There was a lot of closed doors at that time. Mm-hmm. I think trying to find, because the military and coming into the civilian side, like, you guys know, like, it's militaries might as well be Mars. Like, the way people talk to each other, the things that we find that are funny. Holy shit! Like, if you say that stuff in a public place here, like, somebody's calling the cops. I'm sure. Like, So it's finding, to me, it was finding purpose again, right? Yeah. Like, and it wasn't that, I didn't think that was just, I knew those were my skills. That's what I did for 4 years, but I need to find purpose again. I need to find whatever's driving me. And when I was trying to have those conversations, part of that was I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't speak the language anymore around here. Right. So it was hard to kind of find my place there. Yeah. But so I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that when you are in the military, things are so much. I feel like they are so much more simple.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
To a degree. And even if you're in a combat zone with a combat MOS or whatever, I wake up, I know that I have the safety of being around these guys. Like, I feel safe. Like, I know I have all these other people that are watching my back, even though I'm in a fucking war zone. I'm at some combat outpost in the middle of BFE, whatever. Like, I feel safe. I feel good. I feel proficient at my job. I feel like I'm a part of something. I'm authentic in what I do. And I've always felt, and I always say individual experiences may vary in the military, right? But like in the infantry especially, it's like, it does not matter if we three do not get along. We better figure that shit the fuck out, because the mission's getting done one way or another. We're going to be here with each other all day, every day for the next 9 months or however long your deployment is. So we got to learn how to work together. We got to learn how to overcome those barriers. And when you do that, you're so authentically yourself that it's so freeing, because you're not hiding who you are. Like you just said, one of my first office jobs that I got when I got back, I fucking hated it. I couldn't say shit. I like to say, I think of things in terms of what percentage of myself do I feel like I can be around people. And like in the office, after a deployment, I'm like being 10% myself. I will talk to you about the bears or the weather. And other than that, I'm going to shut the fuck up, because I'm going to say something and I'm going to go talk to HR, or I'm going to get the cops called, or like fucking whatever.
Right.
So that's a problem.
That's a great point. Like, I didn't understand, kind of to what we were talking about earlier. The military, you don't have to worry about each other's feelings. You just speak the truth, brother. And if you don't like the truth, too bad, man. It's still the truth. You know what I mean? Like if you and I have beef, like I'll explain why. Like, I think this about you, and hey, dude, that's what it is. But if we're part of the same team, and these two guys got beef with you, it's like deeper than brothers. Like, if you got beef with him, even though I don't like him, like now you got beef with all, like, I'm taking it personal.
Like, how many times, like, again, okay, Army and Marines always talking shit. We can talk shit all day. We're at a bar, we're sitting there talking shit. And then somebody else from outside this group comes and starts talking shit. Yeah. Now it's game over. It's like, I can say something about my family, but if you say something on my family, now it's fucking different.
Who is this guy?
You know what I mean? The other thing that you mentioned, and again, this is something that's definitely not accepted here, but like, for example, with the State Department overseas, it's a private military contractor, the team that I was on, all American, varying backgrounds, Marines, Army, a lot of special operations guys. The only reason why I qualified for it was because I had a paramedic degree and I had combat experience. And so the other team that was staying in our little villa, the medic and the team leader one day were fucking arguing. It was right after they had a hood brief before a mission, and we could hear them fucking yelling at each other. They go on mission, they come back. Before dinner, we see that the team leader now has a black eye, and the team leader and the medic are walking to dinner laughing. Yeah. Because what happened was they had some fucking words. They needed to go handle it. They went and settled it out back, old school, and then the shit was done. Yeah. And then we moved forward. We didn't you don't harbor these feelings towards somebody else, because we don't have the fucking time. No. Because our argument is not more important than the mission. Yep. And we have to do that shit. So we got to figure out what the fuck this is and how we're going to get past it now so we can get stuff done. Yeah. And that doesn't work back here. You know what I mean? No. It's the complete opposite. And the issue that I had when I came back is I had so much support from my brothers when I was overseas. Like, we all took care of each other, because not only are you going through whatever you're going through in the military, you got personal shit going on back home. Somebody got a fucking Dear John letter, somebody's mom died, whoever. Like, we all took care of each other. You get back here and you just assume, like when I got to that office job, I just assumed that, we're all looking out for each other. We're all on the same team. Fuck no. That was not the situation. Like, people were just looking to fuck you over. And you're like, what the fuck? And you're coming into this with this open heart. You're like, hey, I'm here to be a team player. Right. I'm here to help everybody out. And then when it backfires so fucking stupendously, you're like, so can I just not? Like you just said earlier, did the last 4 years just not mean shit?
Right.
Like, does any of this stuff like have any carryover into the civilian world when I can't say what I want to say and be what I think a good person is because I'm not getting rewarded for it? I'm actually getting in more fucking trouble because of it. Like, that's insane. I think that's insane. But anyway, other than that, Bradley, been awful quiet over there. When are some times when you've had to start over?
Well, like you said, getting out of the military.
Yeah.
That's a big one. And trying to learn how to be blind.
I was going to say, bro, you don't fucking lean into that much.
No.
Whenever we talk about like overcoming adversity, you're like, well, when I got out of the military, I'm like, bro, you're fucking blind, man.
Maybe people won't notice if I don't talk about it.
But you don't let that slow you down.
Why would it, dude?
I agree.
Why would I let? Because I could have chosen two options. I could have been miserable, hating my life, contemplating suicide probably every single day.
Yep.
My wife probably would have left me.
Right.
Or I could have embraced what the fuck happened and live my life.
It's something I fucking appreciate. Appreciate about you, dude.
Well, thanks.
Well,
like it took a long time. It didn't just happen. I didn't just like go blind. Like, you know what? I'm great.
Hey, no, it's fine. Totally fine. So what helped you starting over when you lost your fucking vision?
Definitely my family, the support that I had from, because they still don't. Amanda will not view me as someone who's blind. Like, she just sees me as her husband. Like, if I don't do shit around the house.
Yep.
Like, guess what, dude? I don't care if you can't see.
Yeah.
Like, get your shit done.
Which is good and bad.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to be like, yo, I'm fucking blind. All right. I don't want to do this shit.
Well, sometimes there is times where Amanda she'll like, I'll go to help her and she'll be like, no, I got it. I'm like, why? You're busy. Just let me do it. She's like, because I'll just have to redo it anyway. I'm like, well, fuck you then.
Yeah. Well, I think that for me, it was kind of the last time I really started over was, again, starting the nonprofit. Because at the time, I talked to a few people. I didn't want to start a nonprofit. Like, I fucking said this before. Like, I was looking for resources to help, and I was trying to do things with the Mantino Veterans Home. And it was so hard. It was so impossible. I thought about starting a nonprofit, and so many people were like, nah, you shouldn't do that. It's going to be too much work. Don't do that. There's an analogy I heard once, the crabs in a bucket analogy. And I fucking love this analogy. And it's just that when these guys are, fishing for crabs or crabbing or whatever the fuck you call it, they don't have to put a lid on the bucket because the crabs pull themselves back in. They won't let any other crabs escape.
Really?
I fucking like that analogy because I feel like when you're trying to do something for yourself, you're trying to start out brand new, you're already in a vulnerable spot because you're standing at the base of this fucking mountain staring up and you're like, I got to do this shit myself. And then you have people that are trying to actually bring you further down. And sometimes it's not the ones you think. Sometimes it's people that do care about you. And because of their background, their trauma, their whatever, like they don't think you should even fucking try to do this.
But you know what, dude, like to that point and kind of speak on what you were saying too, is like through that struggle, like it's the grind that sharpens the blade, right?
Yes.
And through that struggle, like what I've learned is like, I was thankful for what you just said. Like through my thing, it showed me very clearly who my true friends were. And some of that was a surprise, right?
Yes.
But through that struggle, man, I'm thankful for that.
Oh yeah.
I'm like best thing that ever happened to me because it brought me back. It made me whole. Right. And it showed me who I can depend on.
Yep.
Right? It's hard going through it. Like that mountain looks pretty big along the way, but it's pretty, but you keep your eyes open, man, and your support system shows, dude. You look behind you, bro, and you got people pushing for you,
And there's no way to describe the pride and confidence you have as you're not even standing at the top, but just when you look down and realize, oh shit, I used to be standing down there.
Yep.
I didn't realize that because I've been focusing on the next fucking step.
Yep.
But that was like 1,000 steps ago. Right. You know what I mean? And like, I think about any movie that I kind of like. You think of any movie where there's a team of people and they go through something traumatic. I don't give a shit if it's a heist movie or a plane crash or a sports movie or whatever. They go through something traumatic, and what always happens, like they learn who's really who. Right. Like they're not the same people that they were at the beginning of the movie because they went through some struggle, and then obviously the point of any movie, you have the antagonist. And usually that antagonist seemed like they were one of the good guys in the beginning. And then they went through a little bit of struggle. And now all of a sudden that's the fucking bad guy because they couldn't fucking deal with it. And you wouldn't learn that shit if you didn't go through the struggle.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So a lot of people, like you talked about there, Brad, you said that people have a hard time sometimes when they have to start over. And one of the things that you found, you looked some stuff up about that. What'd you find?
So this is according to lifehack.com. They talked to this gentleman named Jack, and Jack they just used as he had a decent job. Mm-hmm. He had a good family life. He had a good social life. He was kind of on the lavisher side of living. So they asked him why he's afraid to start over, or why he hasn't started over with, because he said he wasn't happy in his job and with his life and stuff. And they asked him, well, do something different. And he said, I'm too comfortable.
Right.
He said, it's too easy now. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of Jacks in society where you get complacent.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, like you just said, man, like we were talking about earlier, it's easy.
Yeah.
Right. And people get so comfortable with that easy, but there's no flavor in that, dude. That's vanilla.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. Yep. Have you ever been really disappointed in yourself for a second? Like, for example, the car that I have now has heated seats.
Yeah.
And it was cold one day and, I turned the heated seats on. And at first I didn't want the heated seats, but then that's what this car came with. So I'm like, fucking all right. And then I got to get into a car that doesn't have heated seats and it's freezing cold out. And for a second, I'm like, man, what the fuck? This car didn't have heated seats. And then for a second, I'm just like, what the fuck happened to me, dude?
Yeah.
I get so disappointed with myself in that moment because I was living with that comfort. And there's a comedian and podcaster, Adam Carolla, pretty famous guy. He's a contractor and just a real blue collar type dude. And he's been going on rants about that shit forever because the more accommodations you make in your life, the harder it is for you to live without those accommodations. And then it just makes you soft.
Yeah.
It makes you incredibly soft.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that was it. I was just saying, I think that's what happened to most of society. We've become Jacks and just you just get comfortable.
So what are some ways to start over if you feel like you are that Jack?
Yeah. So it's again easier said than done. Mm-hmm. But gain a fresh perspective on life. Identify the challenges that are causing you to not change. Check in with your values and your priorities, and utilize the breakthrough framework, which has 4 simple steps you can take to change your mindset. Again, easier said than done. And those 4 steps are: find the hidden opportunity, plan your progression, invest and prioritize, and tap into motivation and good habits.
Well, and to go off of that, and I found some things too, and this is according to wikihow.com. So these are just some ways that you can start over if you are kind of struggling with that and trying to find some ways to do that. So there are 2 methods on here. Method 1 starts with acceptance, and I think acceptance is always really important. So what the article said was, you have to accept the past. You can't start over in life if you're still holding on to the bullshit from before, whether that be a past relationship, job, family, other situation. You have to accept the things that happen. And here's the important part of this article, I thought. It said, acceptance doesn't necessarily mean forgiveness or understanding. It just means that you realize that something happened, you acknowledged it, and you're ready to move on from it. See, that meant a lot to me because I thought acceptance meant like everything has to be great and I need to I need to forgive or whatever. Like, no, that doesn't always fucking mean that. It just means that you are acknowledging it as a thing that exists so you can move on from it. Yes. You don't have to be super happy about the thing that fucking happened. You know what I mean? And I think that's acceptance. So acknowledge it, experience it, move on from it. Don't center your life around it, around the hurt, the failures, and you have to get away from that victim mentality, which was kind of what you said with your point, Brad. Like people that are like, I'll never find love again. I'll never find another job again. Like, I've noticed that the difference between successful people and unsuccessful people, one of the many things is their fucking mindset. It's that mindset. It's like, I heard this quote once that I really liked. I'm sure I'm going to butcher it, so I'm just going to paraphrase it. It was like, I've never had a bad day. I've just had a lot of character building days. And it's like, you think about shit like that and you're like, yeah, Yeah, I appreciate that. And despite the fact that, and I've talked about this on the podcast, like I fucking lost my mom at the end of October 2022. She was on hospice care. Like it was fucking terrible. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot about that situation. And it's so easy. And how many people do you see lean into that victim mentality because they're not accepting something? And it's easy, right?
Every day.
It's super fucking easy to just be like, it's everybody else's fault. I'm never going to find this. I'm never going to find that. Like a lot of the most successful people I know, they dealt with all those fucking struggles too. They just didn't give a shit. They were just like, nah, I'm fucking getting something done. So, I mean, I think that's a pretty big difference there. Number two, you have to remember that things happen for a reason. When I first read this, and when I read through this article at first, I was like, a lot of this I felt like was bullshit until I read more into it. So this one says, remember things happen for a reason. This is not to say that you're powerless and that things are just fate to be a certain way. Rather, nothing has meaning besides the meaning that you assign to it. It's up to you to make every event, incident, moment in your life empowering or disempowering. The lessons in life are not always going to be obvious. You have to try to discover what your life is telling you. So like one of my examples too, so when I started Project Headspace and Timing, I started working for, a friend of mine, Rob Smith, started a franchise of CertaPro painters, and he knew what I needed to do for the nonprofit. He knew how hard I was working for that, but I wasn't making any money. Like I wasn't getting paid. So he brought me on board and he allowed me to do what I needed to do to make the nonprofit successful while earning money for the family. And it got to a point where he had an opportunity to bring somebody else on board to replace me, because we both knew, and we talked about it for years, that eventually I would have to run my nonprofit full time and stop working for his company. And so somebody eventually came along and he did what any friend would do. Like he pulled me aside and he was like, hey man, like I got this guy. I think he could take your job. He'd be great at it. You know, I want to try to make a move before I don't have this opportunity anymore. What do you think about it? And we had this long conversation about it. And I could have easily looked at that as something negative, like I was being replaced or something like that, even though that was not the case or the intention. But I immediately looked at that like, this is my opportunity now. Because of this, I have to be better. Because of this, I have to dedicate more time to the nonprofit. I have to make it successful, because I might not have a plan B. There's a quote that I fucking love, and it's called "Burn the Ships." I got it on a flag in my gym. You know the story behind that?
100%, yeah.
So I think we've talked about it on here before. Hernan Cortez, I think it was the 1500s, early 1500s, taking the Aztec treasure. Treasure hasn't been taken in 700 years. Lots of people tried. Lots of armies tried. Everybody failed. Cortez lands on the beach, and while I'm not condoning any of the heinous shit that was done to take that treasure. Right. You know, he had 11 ships, 600 soldiers, and they get there and they're like waiting for this, I imagine, like Denzel type of fucking inspirational speech. And he's just like, burn the ships. And you have to imagine people were like, what the fuck did he say? And he was just like, because...
So by burn the ships, you mean...
Yeah, like what does that our mean? Ships? Like you want to burn all their ships that we took? Because he said, when we take the treasure, we're going to take their ships back. Yeah. 700 years, nobody's taking the treasure. Guess fucking what? They fought a little bit harder because they didn't have a plan B. Like sometimes that pressure that's coming down in your life is going to make you successful if you let it. You know what I mean? So I thought that was super important. And then the third part, take stock of failures and successes when things aren't working out in your favor. You got to identify the things that are. Keep notes of your successes, even the small ones. Focusing on the positive things usually brings out more positive things. There's a quote in the military: false motivation is better than no motivation, right? Think about what worked for you, how you can make it better, learn from your failure, because failure is extremely important and critical to your growth as a person. That's another thing that I feel like needs to be taught in school. It's like how important failure is, how critical failure is.
That's where you truly learn, man.
Oh yeah.
Right there.
You learn way more from failure than success, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I can think some of the biggest lessons I've ever learned in fucking life were from failure, not from success. You know what I mean? So, and then the fourth one on here, which I also like, don't announce that you're starting over. Just do it. You don't need to validate your choices to make a change in your life. You don't need to tell other people or ask them what they think that you should do. Often when we feel insecure, we consult others so we will feel better about a plan or prepare them for our transformation. But your life is your life, so you need to move on. People will grow with you. Those that don't perhaps aren't meant to be there in the first place. Again, we already talked about that earlier. Yes, I absolutely agree with that. And I also had always been of the mindset where I didn't want to tell you what I was going to do. I wanted to tell you what I did.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to do it, and then I'm going to talk about it when it's done. Yeah. And I don't know how you feel about the success of Wild Harts. I would draw a couple of parallels between the success of Wild Harts and F.I.N.E in that we're just in there putting in the fucking work.
Yeah.
And then people see that and they're like, oh shit, like they're putting in work. This is what they're doing. They're not telling us what they're going to do. They're doing it. And then we're hearing about it or seeing it after the work's getting done. That hits different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And people can see that passion, man. And I think that draws people in, you know, like,
dude,
like,
doesn't matter what
that's
your
how I
job
feel
is.
about your guys' place, man. Like I see that energy, dude. I want to be a part of it. You know what I mean? Like and I think people flock to that.
Yes.
Those positive environments, man, those energetic people, those strong-minded, like, you know, in a positive way, like that pulls people in, man. They want to come check that out.
And I think it doesn't necessarily even matter what the fuck you're doing. When you take pride in what you're doing, if you go to a school and there's a janitor there and he's busting his ass every day, he's got a smile on his face, he's talking to every kid, you're like, I respect the fuck out of that dude. Right. You know what I mean?
Well, dude, just to see somebody that's passionate about something. Yes. I love that, man. Yes. Like, dude, if you're like, if you're a table maker, man, and you got all these tables and you explain your process to me and that's your passion, even though I don't care about, me personally, I just appreciate tables because I can put my drink on them or sit there, like I love seeing like you're like someone that's so passionate about their work and that's how they portray, like that's their art. Like that's how they show their art to the world. Yes. Through that work. And I think that's awesome.
Yes. Yes.
So, and I think most people flock to things like that. So.
Absolutely.
I think there's a flip side to this coin as well, though.
What's that?
Because there's people who seek validation just for seeking validation.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, social media doesn't fucking help at all. But but I also think most people can suss out authenticity relatively quick. Like when you meet somebody that's doing it for the gram or fucking whatever, you're like, all right, bro, like I fucking get it, but it's fine. That's your thing. I'm not hating on it, whatever. But when you meet people and you can just identify, you can tell, no, they're about this life, whatever the fuck it is. This is what they do. Yeah. I feel like it's hard to tell on social media because we're only seeing what people want to show. But when you are talking to somebody face to face, like then you know what I'm saying? But I agree with what you're saying too. The second method, and that kind of goes along with what we're saying. The first thing on here, and the most important thing when it comes to thinking about starting over is discovering your purpose. So thinking about the meaning of your life is one of the first major steps towards making big changes. What are you good at? What do you enjoy doing? What are you passionate about? What makes you feel like you matter? Answering those questions is key to figuring out what will make you happy and give you a fulfilling life, because what works for you might not be what works for me. And like, there's been, so on the crisis side, I'm taking calls from police officers and hospitals going and dealing with veterans in some of the worst fucking spots of their life. They want to kill themselves. They're drinking themselves to death. They're addicted to drugs, whatever the case may be. And like, I'll have, and I'm as an officer, I can only imagine you deal with, this is your job, but it's like you deal with a traumatic situation. Second that situation's over, it's not like, okay, now it's time to go take a break. It's like you might have another situation right on top of that one and another one right on top of that one. And you don't even have time to parse out what the fuck happened in the first thing. And now you're on thing 3. And it's insane to me that people don't understand how hard jobs are where you're doing that shit. And it's so important that if you have a job like that, you believe that this is your fucking purpose. Because when guys have asked me that, they're like, I don't know how you do this. And I'm like, because I genuinely believe that this is why I'm here. I believe that this is what I'm supposed to do. And knowing that means that how can I be angry when I'm doing that which I was put on this planet to do?
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And if I
100%.
didn't have that mentality, I'd have fucking stopped forever ago.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Like, I got a story real quick.
Yep.
Like, just to put kind of what you just said into context, man. Like, I think I had like 6 months on the job.
Yep.
Right.
PD.
The police department. And I get a call for a suicidal subject. We get a lot of those calls, and a lot of them are, they become, if you're not careful, like it's very easy to get complacent with that, because for the most part, 99% of them, you go there, you talk to the person, and then we get them help, right?
Yep.
Like they go seek help. This one was like a Tuesday afternoon. I remember I get a call like over by a body of water. A young man wants to harm himself. I see his car parked in the parking lot. I walk down this trail. He's hiding in the bushes. I'm with a firefighter at the time, because this young man was a firefighter. And so we didn't see him. We walk down this trail. We don't see him anywhere. We're going to get a bird up in the air and look for him. So they tell us to come out so the bird can see the heat signatures. On our way out, I stopped to talk on the radio. This firefighter stops, and he starts pointing, and he's telling me that this guy that we're looking for is down in this area. So I walk up. This young man has like his back to me, and he's probably, I don't know, maybe like 20 feet away, probably less, dude, 15 feet, something like that. He doesn't see me. He's got his back to me. And a round goes off, and it goes over my head, like over my shoulder, like snaps, like quick enough. It drops me to the ground, or I go to a knee. My backdrop is like, it's a pond. My backdrop across the pond are all these families that have stopped and gathered to watch what the police are doing. Right. So this guy goes down, he's screaming. I call out, a shot's been fired, not by me,
right.
Obviously, but, so we run up on this dude, and he's got a gunshot wound to the chest, dies right at my feet. Right. Mm-hmm. We clear that call. I go across the street, like two blocks, like across the main thoroughfare. And some guy just starts chewing my ass because he called the police 45 minutes ago before two teenagers smoking weed in his like nearest backyard, and wanted to know what the heck took me so long.
Holy
that he's a
fuck.
taxpayer. Right. And then you go to the next call, and the next call. And like nowadays, I think if you saw something like that, or, if the rounds flying over your shoulder, they'd send you home. But like, I mean, I got shot on a search warrant before, like barely missed my knee. I went to work that day, you know what I mean? Like, or the next day or something like that. Think about this, dude. Like same thing with veterans, right? Like for an IED, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your truck gets blown up.
Mm-hmm.
What do? If you're not hurt, they put you in another truck, and you just continue the patrol, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what happened to me.
Yep.
So like imagine this, dude. Like if you were to go to, so for like the civilians that are listening, right? If you were to go to work, and you get into a car accident, right? And you're fine, your car's totaled, you're fine. Would you get into it? Would you get like a rental and just go to work? Right? Like, no, nobody, that would be
right.
Crazy, right? Like, and everybody would look at you like, bro, you're crazy. Don't do that. You need to go process that.
Right.
You were involved in some serious shit.
Right.
But like for this type, for veterans or police officers or firefighters, like people that are around this stuff, like that's part of the job, man. And they have to, so if they're short with you, maybe you don't know the call that they just came from. You know what I'm saying? I'm not justifying it. I try to look at it when I'm talking to people. I try to think of it like how I need to be mindful of how I'm coming across to the person I'm dealing with. Because on the same note, that nobody ever calls the police when they're having a good day.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
I just want to let you know.
Yeah,
like,
like,
these cupcakes.
Hey, yeah, come on over here.
Great.
No,
Yeah,
man, it's like every time they're calling the police is one of the worst days of their life.
Right.
Yeah.
So I try to keep that in mind. Like I try to be mindful of how I'm coming off when I'm speaking to them. Maybe that's something other people keep in mind too. You know what I'm saying?
And that's a hell of a fucking task to master, because again, it's like you have no idea when you're coming across anybody. And I always try to think about that shit too. When I run into somebody in public, or somebody cuts me off, or whatever the case may be, what kind of day are they having?
Right.
What happened to them? Like to expect somebody, to expect any human being to go through an insanely traumatic situation like the one that you just said, and then to just hop to the next call, in my opinion, in the future, they're going to look back at us and like, you guys were fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like you guys just expected, and for the public to not understand that, or to just try to be cognizant about it. Like, yeah, I get you're dealing with some stuff, but you have no idea what I just saw, what I just dealt with. And it's like, you can prepare yourself all you want for these shitty, terrible situations, but it's almost like after that situation, your guard's down a little bit because you're emotionally exhausted or whatever the case may be. And then somebody comes in and says some shit like that. And I don't even know how to describe, I guess, the pain, because it's like you're angry, but also depressed, but also like, I can't make you feel how I feel. If you knew how I fucking felt, if you could feel the way that I feel right now for a split second, you would apologize. You would go back to fucking your house. You would be like, I don't know how the fuck you do what you do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, it's, at the time I kind of like laughed about it. Like, wow.
Right.
Like that, because this dude was more emotionally invested, like more upset about, a couple kids smoking weed in his backyard or next to it, than I was at the time, or that I was portraying. You know what I mean? Like there was a battle going on, I'm sure, inside, but it's just like, wow, man, like that's how we live very different lives. That's kind of how I chalked it up to. So
yeah, there's a comedian, actor, Russell Brand, and he was talking on his podcast once about something similar, which not similar, but he brought something up that I thought was interesting, where he said that, like, if you really want to find enlightenment, if you're seeking enlightenment, you don't find it necessarily by just meditating in a controlled environment. You find it when you are in traffic and you're late for something and you're pissed off and you're sitting there and you're seething and someone cuts you off. That's the moment you try to find enlightenment.
Yeah, right.
Right. You know what I mean? But anyway, so, yes, if you don't understand what your purpose is, especially when you're dealing with traumatic situations, like fuck, it makes it that much harder. So it's why I think it's so important to understand what your purpose is. The next one on this was setting goals, making decisions. So again, once you've determined your general purpose and your big life goals, you got to decide specifically how you will reach these goals and then make the needed changes. Are you going to break up with your toxic partner? Are you going to move to a new city? Are you going to go back to school? You have to set short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals for yourself. I think that's really important because, again, like we said before, when you set long-term goals and you don't have any other benchmarks, it's daunting because you're just like looking at all the shit that you have to accomplish and you're not understanding how much you've already accomplished. That's why I think setting short-term goals is so important. Taking a new route, do something different and surprise yourself. You'll probably learn something you didn't know about who you are and what you can do. One of the best ways to jolt yourself out of a life that you might not be satisfied with is to do something completely different. Go on a trip to someplace you've never been. Start learning a language, take up a new sport, exercise. Even though you're going to be terrible at it, give something new a try. Trying new things mentally and physically challenges us and also gives us a fresh excitement for life so we can see the endless possibilities for the next day. So yeah, unknown is fucking scary, but it's equally scary to do what you know and continue down a disappointing and unsatisfying path. I can think of not a lot, but I can think of guys that I went to high school with, and I'm not knocking any profession or whatever, but like they went from high school to college. They always thought they knew what they were going to do. They got a more vanilla-ish type of job. They realized that they didn't love it like they do. And now they've been working in that job for 15 years now. And you can see it. You can see it in their eyes that they're like, fuck, they're just here. Yeah. They're just surviving day by day. They don't have that purpose. They don't have that thing. And I think that's what it kind of spurs these like midlife crisis, existential crisis situation, because you don't have your purpose. You're looking for your purpose. Even if that's volunteering with a nonprofit like Sleep in Heavenly Peace or FAT or whoever, like you got to find those little things to help give you that purpose.
Happy, right?
Yeah.
And and I think part of that too is like what a lot of veterans have been blessed with, or first responders, and blessed is an awkward maybe that's part of our dark humor, I guess. But you know, if anyone's ever tried to kill you, or you have a near death experience, you very quickly understand that, you know, this isn't forever, man. I get one life. And I don't have time. I can't waste one day being unhappy, man. You know what I'm saying? Like every moment is part of this story, and I don't know when it's going to end. You know what I'm saying? And so, but I know that it can happen. It's almost happened to me. And so being able to, if you can cast those, like you guys both said it, man, like I'm a big believer in trying to turn, you know, bad and, you know, negative experiences into a positive too. And I believe everything happens for a reason, man. I think that if you look at those things, like that's all part of of your path, man, and like your story. And if you can learn from that and move forward a better person, then you're blessed for having survived it, you know?
That, and like, I don't know, what is more humbling than like a near-death experience, like a genuine near-death experience. You can think whatever you want about yourself. But you hit that IED or that round, you hear that round whiz by you or whatever the case it is, and you're just like, I was almost not fucking here. And the universe would have gone on without me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And we talked about earlier, like, and it puts your life, like it lays everything out very clearly. Right. This is what matters. I know exactly what matters now. You know what I'm saying? And it isn't necessarily my paycheck, dude. It isn't like that nice new car or this big fancy house. It's the people, dude.
100%.
And I don't know. I don't think you've hit it. Maybe it's on your list farther down, but like the importance of balance.
Oh, that's something I struggle with to this day.
Bro. Like we talked a little bit about it last night. Like for me, it was like, you know, dude, when I was super focused on training, right. And fighting and whatnot, that's literally all I looked at, man, because I wanted to be good at this in this profession, right, in this field, and I was, but I wasn't living my best life, dude. And I was following like the Marine Corps standards, right? Like I had to up it before the enemy, like on a flag downstairs. It was painted downstairs in my gym, dude. Like, and I meant that, dude. Like, you know, someone out there is training to kill me, and I need to be up before him. I need to train harder than him. But what I didn't understand is there has to be a balance, bro. Like there has to be whole. It's that whole like yin and yang thing. And like, so, you know, one time I'm on my way to the gym and my buddy calls me up and he's like, hey dude, what do you know about kale? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Kale? Like, is this the wrong number? Like, what are you talking? He's like, yeah, dude, my kale is not working. I'm like, bro, like, I was almost like insulted. Like, he called me. Like, dude,
how dare you ask me about kale, bro?
And he's, yeah, dude. And he's, you know, he's a good friend of mine. He's a Marine Corps veteran as well. And I'm like, bro, I don't know. You figure out your kale. Like, there's Google, bro, but I'm on my way to the gym to get better. Like, I'm going to be harder, like whatever. Yeah, dude, like, you're soft. Like, get out of here, man. And I straight up told him, I said, dude, it's better to be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in the war. But that's not, I mean, there's some truth to that, dude. But if you want to be a whole person, bro, you have to have that warrior and that gardener, dude, or that farmer. Like, to be for me, like, you know, to be a strong man, like I have to be that protector, dude, but I have to be able to, you know, nourish my children as well, dude, like, and comfort them and care for them too. So sure, I could be a really strong protector of my family, right? But if I have that barrier up, then my kids are just gonna be like, man, this guy's strong. I don't want to mess with that guy. You know what I mean? Like, no, I feel safe. Like, he's not going to let anybody hurt me. I'll feel close to him. Right. Yeah. I'm not going to know what's going on inside their brains. Right.
Yeah.
But if I take time, like with my little girls doing, like I got 1-year-old twin daughters now, and we're laying on the couch and I'm using words like snuggle. You know what I mean? Like, that's so cute, baby. I'm talking all these crazy. And you know what, dude? Like, I don't care. Because I'm happy, man.
Yes.
And you know, like we talked about being numb earlier. Like before, I was numb. And now, because becoming numb is blocking out those emotions. Believe it or not, like to us, we understand it. That's the easy part, dude.
Yeah.
Right? That's very easy to do. Yeah. Just not deal with it. That's simple. facing those things, man, that's hard.
Yes.
Right. Because when you feel it, dude, then it becomes real and you'll feel all of it. There's no like kind of feeling it. You'll feel it all.
Yes.
And that's what's hard, man. But dude, when you get past that, like it's also, you feel good too. And that's life has this new flavor, man. And you won't get that if you don't have that balance. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed. I think it's like a new level of confidence that you have in yourself, because I think when you have that, I don't know, military mindset, you get out, whatever, you have this idea of what you're supposed to be. You have this perception of what, okay, this is who I need to be to other people because this is what I've done. This is who I am. And I think you really learn, like you just said, for me, when I had girls, when I had daughters, because then I learned in that moment, I don't give a fuck what anyone's perception of me is more than theirs.
Right.
Like, I'll do whatever. I'll fucking have tea parties, nails, 100%. Do their hair. I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks. And in that moment, I don't feel weak because of that. I feel stronger because I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks. Right. I'm just having a good time with my daughters because they're going to know that I love them enough to shed whatever those preconceived perceptions are of myself to make sure that they are having a good time, that we are having good quality time together. So I want to 100% agree with that. And when we were talking last night, one thing I didn't bring up that I told you I wanted to bring up that you reminded me of when you talked about that was, are you familiar with Miyamoto Musashi?
I know the name.
So he's a 16th century Ronin, right? So he was a samurai without a master. He was arguably the greatest swordsman to have ever lived. He perfected the two-sword fighting style. He believed that the way that he could find enlightenment was by being the best fucking warrior that there is. And he did. Over the course of his life, he got in over 60 some battles. Most of them were one-on-one. He fucking won every single one. The stories about him are insane. Like, he had a wooden training sword, still fucking braining dudes. And when he reached his enlightenment, he got to a point where he said, I am proficient at this. And so what he did after that was, he put down the swords, he went to the top of a fucking mountain, he wrote a book, and then he became the master of the tea ceremony. He became an artist. He became a painter, a sculptor. And I have this picture upstairs, and it's called the Shrike, and it's one of his. It's obviously a fucking reprint or whatever. And they talk about it in his book, The Book of Five Rings, which is all about his two-sword fighting style. The narrator in the prologue talks about this painting, the Shrike, and that's why I got it. And it's this bird sitting on this really long piece of grass. And when you're looking at it, like, you can almost tell that the artist was a swordsman. And he called it a courageous brushstroke, like a fucking sword, right? And then there's a bird sitting on top of it. And I loved that because, like you said, I mean, it's balance. He didn't just continue that lifestyle. He did it. He mastered it. And one of the things that Musashi said, that's one of my favorite quotes, is know the way broadly and see it in all things. So he became enlightened through his fighting style, and then he took the pieces from that and applied that same mentality to becoming good at other things. And I love that story, especially when it comes to like veterans, combat veterans and shit like that, because it's to say, like, the things that you learned, they can help you become the next person that you're going to become. It's not like it holds you fucking back. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What you did in your 20s doesn't have to be the person you are today. You know what I'm saying? Like, that just adds to your story, man. Like, that's part of it, man.
From a biological perspective, I think I read before, I don't know, somebody can check me on this, but like every 7 years, I think, like every cell in your body is like it's renewed or whatever. Like, you get rid of the old cells, you get the new cells. So essentially, like every 7 years, you're pretty much a fucking different person, more or less, from a biological perspective. So yeah. Okay, next one, and I like this one. Get over yourself. So you have to understand, if you want to start new at anything, you have to know that you don't know everything. You're going to make mistakes. Those mistakes are important. Knowing certain information does not make you a better person. It just makes you more knowledgeable about some things. So you have to ask yourself, is knowledge the thing that I desire, or is it the ability to prove something to others that I desire? You have to ask yourself why that matters and if that makes you happy. So, I mean, yeah, you got to stay humble no matter what the fuck you do. It's easy for all of us to stay humble because we're married and we have kids. And if you want to stay humble, just get married and have kids. Right. You're going to get humbled every fucking day. So I like that one. The other one, rely on others and asking for help, especially, that's super important. You have to know that if you don't know everything and you know what you're good at, there's some things that you might need to ask somebody else for help with, and that's okay. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you smart and it makes you resourceful. You have to know that it's okay to ask for help, and that's a hard thing for a lot of people, myself included, for a while. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, dude, I had a hard time with that like my whole life, but YouTube can only teach you so much, man.
Right.
Like, especially when you're trying to start a farm, like when you're raising livestock, it's not just like feed them and like give them water.
Yep.
It's not like a dog. Yep. Like you got to be a vet. You got to figure out how to deliver these animals. Bro, I didn't even know, dude. Like I've been there for all 5 of my children's birth, but I wasn't like an active participant. And I was like, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm the,
we got a pretty easy job as a guy.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, hey, babe, you're doing great. You know what I mean? Like just breathe, whatever. But to be the guy that's like that, that's running this thing, man. Like I don't even. That's a lot, dude. And then to figure out how to do it with cows and goats and pigs. I mean, they pretty much handle it. It's not
right.
But if there's a problem, you have to know like how to turn that baby around or whatever. So I don't know how to do that, but I'm learning. But if it wasn't for like the support staff, man, like asking people like questions, what do I need to even be successful at this, right? And then having friends that are coming out and willing to help. It's okay to ask for help.
Yes.
It's good to have it too. Like you're blessed if you have it,
Hell yeah.
It's that Western mentality that we have.
Midwestern?
No, like the Western, just like the what's in it for me, like shying away from like you know what I mean? And I think that's where the asking for help kind of just tanked.
It does. Or just being embarrassed that you have to ask for help too. Like that was for me, like, no, I'm macho enough. Like I can handle it. You know what I mean? There's nothing I can't do by myself. No, man, that's not cool, because when they need help, like I would love to help my neighbors. You know what I mean? But and I want them to, I want my friends to be able to come to me to ask for help. Yes. You know what I mean? But what better way to show them that than me ask them when I need it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
and when you don't make a big deal about it, like people have come to my assistance on so many occasions, and I'm so appreciative. I'm so incredibly appreciative every time, because I don't think about any time I help anybody, it doesn't register as like this is a very specific moment in my life. It's like this is what we're supposed to do. Like I think the mission first mentality, like with a nonprofit, especially like when I first started FAT, I was always trying to work with other nonprofits because the overall goal is to make the world better. I don't care what nonprofit you are. The overall goal is to improve, to leave the world in a better place than the one that we found, right? And you find your niche of like, I think I can do it by building beds for kids. I think I can do it by taking care of these dogs. I think I can do it by working with veterans. And so if that's the mission, that's the overall mission, then I don't fucking care who gets credit for shit. Right. I don't care like who's doing what. Like, hey, let's just all get together and let's just move forward. And that's how it gets done. And it's easier and it's faster if you just go forward that way. Yeah. In doing so, I found a lot of nonprofits that like did not want to fucking work with another nonprofit because it's like they only think it's one pot of money. And they're like, okay, we're all getting the same pot of money. You know what I mean? Like, for example, and I'm not going to slam any organization, but like CSL reaches out, because we do some stuff with CSL, which is a really big pharmaceutical company in our area, probably the biggest employer in our area in Kankakee County, right? And they're like, when we do some cool stuff with them, and they said, hey, for Veterans Day, we want you guys to come out here. And they wanted us to go out there to spread information about what veterans are doing or what we're doing for local veterans. And I said, awesome. If we're going to do that, will you allow me to bring in all the other organizations that do things for veterans? Because if the mission is to help veterans, I don't give a shit if you find that with me as long if you get linked up with Buddy Check 2 too, and you're like, hey man, I like what these guys are doing. Great, get with them. We need as much help as we can to achieve the mission.
Right.
And the only way we're going to get that help is if we all continue to work together. And thankfully, like when you talk about asking for help, how fucking important are like mentors? Like I am so thankful that when I first started this, I got connected with the CEOs of some big nonprofits. One of them is Rush at Rush Hospital, the Road Home program, which is an amazing program. And the CEO's name is Will Beiersdorf. And right from the beginning, like when he and I started talking, he was like, the biggest compliment he gave me was, he said, you remind me of me. He said, I'm going to keep checking in on you, see how things are going. And he fucking does. It's been years later. And he still calls me every once in a while like, hey, man, how's everything going? Where's everything at? And I can talk to him about shit. And he'll give me his opinion on things. And I genuinely appreciate that opinion. Because if you want to be the biggest dude in the gym, what do? You go find the biggest dude in the gym right. And you ask him what the fuck he's doing. Like, how can you be successful at anything if you don't have those fucking mentors too? Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
The next one, also very important, preparing for moments of weakness. Sometimes you feel like your new plan isn't working and you want to revert back to that old life. You want to quit. You have to plan for these moments. Getting rid of the junk food if you're a stress eater, deleting the ex's phone number, having moments of weakness is totally common. When was your guys' like last moment of weakness?
Last night when the cows were out.
Yeah, dude.
But you know what, dude? Like, but we laugh about it, man.
You have to.
I mean, what else are you gonna do?
Right.
You know, we're gonna get them back in. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's all on how you view those things, man. Because one, I got to remember that my children are always watching and they're a part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so. Working cattle or especially moving pigs is frustrating, especially pigs, man, because they're smart.
Yep.
And they'll figure out like he wants me to go here, so I'm gonna go every other direction but that way.
Yep.
So we're not perfect at it because tensions can run high. But sometimes you just gotta laugh about it, man. Just like, hey, man, like
I credit the military for that.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, you're right.
When you go through shit overseas, you don't have a lot of fucking options. And so in my opinion, especially depending on how traumatic it is, and I'm not saying that you can just make light of someone's death or depending on like the type of traumatic shit you're subjected to over there. But it's like you sort of have two options. Right. You can figure out a way to make a joke about this shit and get through it a little bit better, or you can stuff it all down deep and it's going to fuck you up at some point, bro. You know what I mean? 100%. Like the last two, celebrating your progress. Remember, you got to acknowledge all progress towards your new goal. Some of your milestones might be in the very long term, like we talked about. And sometimes you can lose sight of what you're working towards, but instead, you got to remember that the long run is a bunch of shorter runs and celebrate your successes along the way. And the last one,
as I say, and sometimes you just lose sight. Sorry, that was so stupid.
Hold on. That's the one.
So stupid. I'm sorry.
That wasn't stupid. I loved it. I think that it's also, obviously, it's super important to let yourself know. It's not like you're trying to just pat yourself on the back no matter what, but it's like if you fucking accomplish something, just tell yourself, don't make a huge deal about it, but at least tell yourself like, hey, I'm proud of myself for achieving this fucking thing.
Oh, bro,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're hitting it right on the head. So like, I don't care what size task I do with my sons on the farm, right? Like, we always take stock. I tell them this, like, we're gonna take 5 minutes to take stock on what we did today, and we'll just walk around and look at it. And that doesn't matter if it's like sweeping the floor of the barn. Like, hey man, remember what it looked like before? Now look what it looks like.
I really like that.
Yeah, at the end of every day, like, or any time where I should say every day, but if we're out there doing work, man, like we're gonna be, our last task once we get things cleaned up or finished up is, all right, let's take stock of what we did.
You're making it visual. You're making it more real. Like you said, that moment with your son when he bought the soldiers and he like got it in that moment. You're just trying to reiterate that.
Yep.
I like that. That's a really good point. And the last one is keep moving. Life is always evolving, so you should be too. Adapt or die was something I've always agreed with. Stopping to smell the roses, embracing the moment is one thing, but Simply stopping and standing still is another. You don't want your life to become stagnant again. There are always new people, new opportunities, and new experiences waiting for you if you should decide to seek them out. So I agree. I loved all that. Yeah. So I thought, other than that, do you guys have any other thoughts about starting over?
Just start.
Just fucking do it.
Just do it. Man. Like, if you wait for like, the perfect time or the perfect thing, man, like you're gonna be waiting forever. Or you want to do all the research. I'm not saying, just dive in both 2 feet like blind, like my wife and I did, because that's kind of like that can be a struggle too, right? And that's so definitely do your research, but don't think that you have to learn everything about it and plan for every single contingency. Like you're going to learn along the way, and that's part of the journey, man. Like that's part of that growth is trial and error, like we talked about, man. Just do it. Start with I say find your chickens, man. Like whatever it is, dude. Like for me, it was chickens.
Yeah.
Find your chickens, whatever that is, man. Just and start. Just do it.
How important though is that? I'm glad you touched on that, because it's like, again, especially if you're I'll say logical type of person, you can easily sit there and what if something all day.
Yeah.
And then before you realize it, it's been all day and you haven't accomplished anything because you were just sitting there thinking about, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? Blah, 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 blah. Like, just starting something is so important in and of itself. Like this fucking podcast, dude. We talked about it for like a long time.
Yep.
And then I was getting into the weeds, reading up on like this software, this camera, this microphone, like what I got to do for this, how production's going to work. And it got to the point where I was so scared to start doing something because of all the studying that I had done about it. And you're reading what works and what doesn't work, and this expert versus that expert, no matter what you're doing. And then thankfully to our producer, Jake was like, dude, just come in my studio and let's just start recording. And I was like, fuck, all right. Yeah. And sometimes it's as simple as just starting it.
Yeah. Because you go down this road, you think, like you want to do it, and then you'll learn about it so much that you're like, wow, this is so, you learn too much about it.
Yeah.
It's so hard. It's almost like it beats you down instead of just starting, man. Learn it for yourself. Just go do it, man.
Yep.
Like it's not, don't bet the bank on whatever you're going to do it with, like you need to test the waters a little bit, but you got to start it. And you got to start.
Yes. And that will encourage and motivate you to continue doing what you're doing.
Right.
And you have to start learning on the fly with some stuff, because again, otherwise you're just spending all the time thinking about what if, and you're not actually getting anything done.
And write down like attainable goals, man.
Yeah.
And they don't have to be huge things, like little mile markers, man.
Yeah.
Like, and take pride in those little things. Like I remember our first egg, right? Like the first egg that we had went out to the nesting box, and it was like, and like that went from getting our first 5 chicks, and learning about, building the brooding box and everything that goes, like feeding them every single day, right? Building a coop, having friends and family coming over and visiting them and helping us build the coop, taking care of them every day. Cause chickens don't just like lay like when they're a couple weeks old, like it's 6 months, before those birds start laying. So all those things, like we go out one day, we have this little tiny egg, cause they're when they first start laying eggs, they're really small, but it's like, even though that was so small, there was so much work and effort, and the story to that was so long. It was just a beautiful little brown egg, man.
Hell yeah.
We all fried it up, man. We all had like a crumb out of it or something like that, dude. It was pretty cool.
But it was that benchmark.
Yeah.
It was that mile marker to let you know, like, this shit's real.
Right. And so from that, now we're pumping out, not this time of year, but we pump out dozens of eggs every week.
Yeah.
So, but I enjoy that. In my mind, that little bitty egg, that first one that we have is sweeter to me than the dozens that we pump out nowadays, man. Cause that's where it started.
Yeah. I mean, you understand why like bars and restaurants, that first $1 bill fucking goes right on the wall.
Yeah.
Cause
remember that, take stock in that.
Yes. Yes, I agree.
Stay hungry.
For sure.
But yeah, recognize those little things, man. Take time to recognize those little things.
Hell yeah.
They'll keep you motivated.
Other than that, what else is coming up from an event perspective for Wild Harts Farm?
Wild Harts Farm. We just we have our farm camp is coming up in June and July. That's on wildhartsfarm.org. Those days are already up. We'll have our events out in February for the next year. We're starting a herd share. Get into that raw milk. You ever had some raw milk? You got to treat yourself, guys.
Oh, shit.
I'll hook you up.
Yeah.
So we're going to have 4 cows of milk by June. But besides that, same old stuff. Normally, the first event of the year is our Easter extravaganza. It's like a big Easter egg hunt out in April. So start that thing off. We'll have those dates up in February.
Hopefully get our Halloween party going on over there this year, because we couldn't last year because of the fucking weather.
Yeah.
And hopefully this year doing some more stuff out there.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
My daughter had such a good time at farm camp. We're probably going to be sending her back again this year.
Farm camp is awesome, dude. Like, that's
such a great time.
Yeah, seeing kids outside and you know, none of the little ones are asking about like their phones. They just want to learn about the chicken today, man. Or why is the color egg like that? Like, it's literally just, we need a break from screens, man. Like,
right.
It's seeing kids outside climbing on stuff, asking questions, like hearing my 100-year-old barn, like the laughter just rolling. Out little kids, man, like their imagination going. It's pretty cool. It's a fun thing.
And that precipitates after that, like, because my oldest daughter is very inquisitive. So she goes to farm camp and then she comes home and she wants to learn more about how to raise a chicken. She wants to learn more about cows. She wants to learn about whatever. And isn't that what you want as a parent? Like your kid to be asking these questions, to want to learn, not just stare at a screen, like you said.
Right.
And that's the best way to do it.
Exactly. They're not learning from looking at this. They're learning by doing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's, to me, it's beautiful, man. I love seeing kids outside.
I got the picture of Lily milking the cow somewhere with you.
Yeah.
And like, if you would have asked me if I thought she would do it, I'd been like, fucking no way. There's no way she would do it. But she was in there with a giant, genuine smile on her face.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because she was getting something out of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's really cool. And we find that, like, it doesn't matter. That's what's so cool about the farm for us, is like our visitors come from, you know, local area, you know, from all around Kankakee County or an hour south of us, or we've had people come from like north of Rockford down to us, or like the Chicago. A lot of people come from Chicago, man. So all these different backgrounds, but. And, you know, they probably wouldn't be talking if they were out at the bar someplace, right?
Right.
They're here, they are on our farm, and very quickly we find common ground, and we realize that, like, we're not all that different.
Right.
You know, like there's a reason that everybody wants that many people want their kids to experience or to come out and check this out. It's like, simple's better. You know what I mean?
Yep.
We live very busy lives, so to kind of to slow down and come out and kind of reconnect with nature, there's something about that, and
the satisfaction you get by working with your hands.
Yeah, dude. And just learning to do things, and like the fresh air, man. And like,
yes,
that's my piece, man. Like, it's nice. I drive an hour to work every day, but I would drive that. You know, I have no problem doing that for 30 years, man, because get away from all that.
Yep.
And it's, I don't know. That's my little slice of heaven, dude.
Yep. What's the website?
wildhartsfarm.org.
I'll include that in the episode description. What about with Beacon? You got anything coming up with Beacon?
Yeah, Beacon, we do a lot of stuff with, I guess I didn't explain what Beacon Training Group is. So Beacon Training Group is an active threat response company. So we train, it's all Marine Corps veterans that own it. And we train police officers, firefighters, dispatchers, so the first responder side, as well as civilians in active threat response.
Nice.
So kind of a one-stop shop for that. So in the wintertime, we tend to train a lot of schools. And then in like the spring and the fall, we mostly do police departments and fire departments. So
where can people learn more about that?
BeaconTrainingGroup.org.
BeaconTrainingGroup.org. That'll also be in the episode description. Okay. Other than that, Craig, I really appreciate it, dude.
Yeah,
thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Definitely got to do it again. Definitely got to get some raw milk. Packy goes out there and he fucking talks about it all the time.
Yeah, dude, he's a good guy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And he is one of those dudes that puts a lot of fucking research into everything that he does. And when I told him like that we were just that we were friends and grabbing a beer that one time, blah blah blah. He's like, oh shit, you know Craig? I'm like, yeah, I fucking know Craig. And I'm pretty sure he was talking to me about the fucking milk, and he said like the same thing that you were saying about it. Like, bro, you got to get on this raw milk.
It's like
he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, it's like cold silk, man. I was never a milk guy before I got that cow, and like now it's like, dude, we dried up our cow before we went on vacation, so we were drinking the store-bought stuff for like 2 or 3 weeks, and it tasted like I was drinking toilet water. I'm like, we got to stop this.
Really?
It was like that, bro.
What?
Right?
Yeah.
Like that.
I'm gonna be. I'm gonna try that. I'm definitely gonna try that.
Maybe we could do another episode about raw milk.
A whole episode about raw milk.
Because you're about to get me on my soapbox.
Tune in for the next episode about raw milk. And again, just thank you very much for what you do. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it, my friend. It was a good time. Thank you again for listening. Make sure to check the episode description so you can follow Craig and all the amazing stuff that they're doing. Make sure you check us out on projectheadspaceandtiming.org. We got a peer support group for veterans every Monday night at 7 p.m. Guardian Concepts in Kankakee that's been steadily growing for the past year and a half, which is awesome. Doing an axe throwing league right now on Thursday nights at 7 p.m. at Splitting Targets. Free for any veteran. You just got to register because we only got 12 spots. And we got a lot of other stuff coming up too, so make sure you check out projectheadspaceandtiming.org. Other than that, brand new year. Maybe it's brand new you. Hope you got something out of this episode, and we will be sure to do our best to support you in any way that we can. So until next time, thanks for tuning in.